Oh, my God.
Would you want executive session at the beginning or at the end?
Right away.
Right away. So who's here? Don Con?
Good evening, everybody. The City of Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals meets tonight in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, and other applicable laws. Tonight's hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The Secretary, it's going to be the Vice Chair this evening, will read the legal notice or state that such notice has been waived. Excuse me. All applications will be heard in the order they were received in the City Clerk's office or as otherwise designated by the Chair. They will be heard in order this evening. The petitioner or the petitioner's representative will present the subject application to the board. The Chair may limit the remarks. And I just want to know, is there, by a show of hands, is there anybody this evening that's brand new to this? That has never, okay. Excuse me. So I'm just going to read a little bit more and then I'll explain it in regular terms. All parties in interest will be given an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition to a pending application, and the board may receive similar written communications to be placed on the public record. The petitioner will be given the opportunity to refute any such remarks. Okay, so this is how it works. We're following the agenda in order. When it's your turn, you come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then you tell us why you're here. And please keep to the subject matter. Remember, you're here for dimensional relief. Tell us what you're building, why you want to build it, and if you have a hardship, which we hope you do. The board will then ask you questions. If you have a builder or an attorney that's going to present for you, they can come up and present. At that point in time, after we've asked you some questions, I then say, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak in favor? Hopefully we have some neighbors that will speak in favor. Then I say, is there anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? And we usually have people to speak in opposition. After that, you may, or your attorney or your builder can come up and you can discuss or address any of those issues that were in opposition. I don't think you want to address anything that's in favor. And then we might ask a few more questions, and at that time, we take a vote. Excuse me. Let me just say, for you, that's people that are in the audience or anybody listening, it always is to your advantage if you talk to your neighbors ahead of time about what you're building. It doesn't work very well if they just found out an hour ago that you want to build an oversized garage 1 foot from their property line. So that being said, we then take a vote, and once again, not everything can get approved. Some things have to get denied. If you're asking for too much, we have zoning laws and ordinances in place for the protection of you, for the protection of your neighbor, and for the protection of the city, and we have to enforce those laws. So that's why some things are not approved. At that point, the decision is typed and filed with the city clerk. Once the decision is filed with the city clerk, there is a 20-day appeal period. Once we take a vote, you are then notified by our clerk, Carla McGrath, tomorrow. If you have any questions, she can explain them to you about the 20-day appeal period or whatever. In compliance with the open meeting law, this hearing is also being recorded stenographically by our clerk. When you are at the podium, please speak clearly and directly into the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Now, however, this evening, there is a matter before the board that must be discussed in executive session, and it's not going to take long, but the board now has to leave their chairs, except for Mr. Slattery, and we have to just have a very short executive session. When we come back, we will then take number 1. I need a motion now to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second. All approved? Any, oh, I can't even think of the word.
Opposed.
Opposed? Okay. So we will return momentarily. Okay, everybody. One more thing. Mayor Betancourt is scheduled to show up this evening. He would like a few minutes of our time. He's not here yet. When he does show up, I will, look, I'm not going to interrupt you right in the middle of a sentence, but I will stop the meeting at a certain point, give him the podium, let him say whatever he wants to say, and then he's on a pretty tight schedule. I don't know what time he's arriving, but just to let everybody know that that should happen this evening. So our regularly scheduled agenda item is number 1, which is a continued application and is going to be continued.
So we received correspondence dated November 30th, 2021, addressed to the City of Peabody, Massachusetts Zoning Board of Appeals. Attention to Carla McGrath regarding 8 Bourbon Street. It's a letter from Attorney John Kelty. Dear Ms. McGrath, I represent Spiro J. DeMarcus, trustee, with respect to an application for variance at 8 Bourbon Street. Please accept this letter as my request that the matter be continued from December 20th to 2021 to the meeting scheduled for January 25th, 2022. The applicant has engaged the services of an engineering firm to assist in incorporating the proposed addition into the general utilities and stormwater management in the plaza, and the firm has not completed the task. Thank you for your cooperation on this. Very truly yours. Based upon this, I'll make a motion to continue the 8 Bourbon Street to the next meeting, January 25, 2022.
Favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On to number 2, which is Danielle Karen, 11 Anthony Road.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing on December 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960, on the application of Daniel Karen for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 11 Anthony Road, Peabody, Mass. Map 073, Lot 045. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct a garage and requires relief to the right side yard where 15 feet is required and 7 plus or minus feet is proposed. Front yard where 20 feet is required and 16.6 plus or minus feet is proposed. The property is an R1A zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at Peabody-mass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Thank you. Name and address for the record. Make sure you put the little red button on.
Yes, my name is Anthony Karen. I'll be speaking on behalf of my daughter, Danielle.
Here you go. You can adjust it.
Thank you. We're seeking permission to build a garage and family room. There is an existing garage and breezeway there that we're going to just basically put the garage in front of the existing garage. And we're looking for relief on front and side. We've already gone through this once before, but due to COVID and building material and stupidity, time has lapsed. So we're back.
Thank you for your honesty.
It is what it is, and yeah, stupidity, COVID, and lack of building material. So we're presenting back to the board again for, try this again.
Thought this looked familiar.
Has anything changed from the last application?
Nothing has changed.
Questions by the board? Concerns? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
Roll call vote.
Julie. Keith.
Yes.
Karen. Stephen.
Yes.
Fran.
Yes, you have been approved. You'll hear
Thank-
from Carla tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Number 3 is 40 Trask Road.
Notice is hereby given the Board of Appeals of City of Peabody will hold a public hearing Monday, December 20, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application of Brian Cantazono for a variance from provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 20 Trask Road, Peabody, Mass. Map 061, lot 020. Petitioner seeks a variance to build the sunroom and requires relief to the left side yard setbacks where 20 feet is required and 14.7 is proposed. The property is located in R1B zoning district. The application and plans are available to the public by contacting Carla McGrath or coming to the City of Peabody's City Hall in advance prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Okay,
Hello, Brian Catanzano, the homeowner of 40 Trask Road. I'm requesting to build a sunroom on the back of the house, 14 feet 7 inches from the property line. Ordinances require new structures to be 20 feet, but my entire house is between 14 feet 3 inches and 14 feet 7 inches. So the porch will be built in place of the existing patio if you approve this variance.
so I went by here, I must have looked at the wrong house. You haven't started anything yet.
So the builder was under the impression that the permit was approved. He got blueprints signed off here at City Hall, and it wasn't until someone came out to do an inspection on the inside of the house that they realized it was against the ordinance. So they dug up the entire patio and had to stop.
Builder's fault, right? Questions by the board, concerns? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you're all set. You'll hear from Carla tomorrow. Just make sure we have our variances in order. 4 is 11 Moulton Road.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing on December 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960, on the application of Mr. and Mrs. Machado for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended section 7.2 as it applies to the premises known as 14 Moulton Road, Peabody, Mass. Map 046, lot 061. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct an addition and requires relief to front yard where 25 feet is required and 18.8 is proposed. The property is in an R1 zoning district. Application and plan are available for the public that to be viewed at the City Hall and by contacting Carla McGrath. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Good evening. Name and address for the record.
Jeff Machado, owner of 14 Moulton Road. We're looking to do an addition in the front of the house to extend the 2 bedrooms for my sons.
These drawings, are these, I never really saw drawings like this before. This is exactly as it's going to look?
That was the existing.
Understand what concept drawings mean. Is it true this is what it's going to be, or this is a concept like this is sort of what it's going to be like?
Page just shows the 2 extensions on the room.
Help me out
Third
here.
to last.
Yeah, just through the chair. So I think what the chair is referring to is on the bottom of the first several pages showing the diagram, floor plan, roof plan, existing framing, et cetera. At the very bottom, it just says concept drawings for permit. So I guess the question is just, is this conceptual? Is this the way it would actually look?
Yes.
Okay. This is the way it would actually look?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So, So I need for you to explain this to me in great detail. The whole project, I need
Okay,
a
so
big
we already
explanation.
got approved for the 2 additions in the back. The two additions in the back were already approved. And the front right side is where we need to get the variance, just a little triangle shape.
Any other questions by the board? I guess I was the only one that didn't understand that.
No, it was a weird.
Yeah, it was a confusing drawing. I saw a kitchen. You're not doing anything to a kitchen. So you went above and beyond. Questions, comments by the board? Anyone in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you've been approved. You'll hear from Ms. McGrath tomorrow. Thank you. Number 5, Arthur and Ellen Collins, care of Attorney Kelty.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing on December 20, 2021 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application of Julie Thibodeau, personal representative for Arthur and Ellen Collins, care of Attorney John R. Kelty, for a variance from the provisions of the zoning ordinance 2019 as amended, sections 7.1.1, 7.1.5, 7.2, 9.4, and 10.5.1, as it applies to the premises known as 6 Summer Street, Peabody, Mass. Map 085, Lot 159. Petitioner seeks a variance to allow for the reuse of existing structure on property to become a second residence on same lot and requires relief to rear yard where 35 feet is required and 1 foot is proposed, front yard where 15 feet is required and 2 feet are proposed, right side yard where 10 feet is required and 3 are proposed, landscaping, construction requirements, lot dimensions, and accessory structure use. The property is in an R2 zoning district. Application and plan are available for the public at City Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is John Kelty. Members of the board, I am an attorney. I practice law at 40 Lowell Street here in Peabody, Massachusetts, and I appear on behalf of Julie Thibodeau, who is here this evening with her husband, James Thibodeau. And Julie is heir to the estate of Collins family. Collinses have owned this property since at least 1937. The principal structure was built in 1852. It's a row house, meaning that it is longer than it is wider. It is built, the original home was built in 2 sections, and they are a 36 by 19, which is the main house, and then attached to it is a 17 by 15. Those 2 sections, which show on the assessor's map, were both built in 1852. The barn is described in the assessor's records as barn bank. Interesting because there happens to be a bank right out in front, the old Shawmut Bank, which is now La Siesta. I'm not sure why it was referred to as barn bank. I think perhaps when you look at the structure itself, it is built into the ground. I grew up in a house that had a cold cellar, and I think that the barn bank is a description of a barn that was also used as food banking, and the lower portion of it was used to store food supplies, vegetables and the like. The barn itself, as I've said, was built in 1910. My request for variance is essentially to utilize the property, which is a single-family residence. We want to utilize that as two-family and incorporate into that two-family utilization of the barn at the rear. So I've asked for a variance which requests that we be enabled to use this lot containing 4,860 square feet rather than 7,500 square feet. If this variance, and then the other side yard are all existing conditions. We're not proposing to make any of the structures on the lot any bigger. We're surrounded by, on our left, as you face the house, we have a parking lot that is a shared lot for some number of people that are located above the La Siesta restaurant. There is also an interest held by Bavaro's package store, and there is also an interest in Petrillo's restaurant, and they all utilize, as I understand it, they all utilize that parking lot. Above Petrillo's, there is, it's all restaurant. Above the corner building, 1 Main Street, we have quite a number of units located on Main Street above the Siesta restaurant. There are units, multi-family units. There are units above John Zanino's Insurance on the corner of Summer and Foster. Behind us, immediately to our right, that is a longstanding 3-family. To the right, going uphill, there are singles, there are 3s, there are condominiums, which is a church conversion.
Sorry to interrupt. I need to recuse myself from this. I have a relative that's in a butter I didn't realize before this meeting until you just said it.
Okay.
So I have to recuse myself.
Now I need 4 out of 4.
And
Well,
it's probably going to be 4 out of 4 for a while, so. think
Pardon?
about it. It probably will be for a while, so.
so we have an area, a neighborhood, which is 2 and 3 families. We have multi-families, which are the condos in the old church. We have a still operative church. We have commercial properties surrounding us down on Foster Street and the Black Box, which is the old Peabody Post Office. So we're in the midst of a very different and cross-zoned and multi-purposed area of land. We've presented you with the plan that shows the existing conditions. We have filed. We have looked at the issue of whether we are located in a floodplain, and we have a certification from our engineer that we are high enough that we will not need to file with the Conservation Commission. We have spoken to our neighbors to the immediate right, and they have expressed concern that any new construction not be any taller than the existing structures. We have not asked for any kind of addition that would be added as to height. We have not asked for a variance for height. Simply put, we're asking for a variance that would allow us to utilize this entire property as a 2-family, so we're seeking area of 4,860 rather than 7,500 square feet. And I think that this is an opportunity for the city to sort of not get away from our roots, where we would revitalize this particular property. There was even a period of time that the property was used as a rooming house in conjunction, as there is a rooming house out in front of us. All of those uses have since been discontinued, and we are hopeful to place that property on the market. If you were to grant this variance tonight, I would need one more step, and that would be to go to the planning board, not to divide the property, but to ask that the planning board waive the provision that prohibits two structures on one lot, inasmuch as this proposal is to convert the barn in the rear, to convert that to a residence. So there would be one residence in the existing single-family home, and there would be a second in accordance with two-family zoning. R2 zoning would be located in the barn. It would be an opportunity to revitalize, refurbish, renew the two structures that are on the property, and it would be an opportunity for us to continue with the kind of architecture that is represented by this house, which is buildings that were quite often built in the past in downtown areas, referred to as row houses. We would continue to keep it as a row house. There would be no envelope additions. There would be no addition in the air. We would utilize a driveway that is in existence on the left-hand side. Our neighbor to our right, I think, has concerns about using the driveway to the right. We would certainly agree to a condition that we not park on the right-hand side of the premises. And we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have this evening, or to respond to any testimony from abutters. With that, I'm happy to turn it over back to the chair.
Thank you. All right, well, Mr. Kelty, so you are asking for 15 feet are required of a front yard. You're proposing 2. 35 feet required for a rear yard, you're asking for 1. Required 10 feet of a right side yard, you're asking for 3. So you're asking for a variance that is quite substantial. The other thing is,
However, they're all existing conditions. Yes.
so you're requesting a variance to reuse a garage on a property as a second habitual space on the same lot. We just denied 8 Noble Lane last month for failure to provide a substantial hardship, and the granting would derogate from the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance too greatly, as they wanted to build a small second dwelling on the same lot for their son.
No.
So,
That was going to subdivide. That was a request to subdivide the property. This is...
okay, so
Yeah,
you know what I'm
that's
saying?
fine. I just didn't
right.
want the record to reflect.
So you're asking for quite a bit, and my feeling is that this is not allowed, and I can't vote for this, but I'm only one vote.
Through the chair?
Go ahead.
If I could. I don't doubt that this could be a good project, but here's my concern, okay? You're taking a auxiliary structure and asking for residents. I think we're still in litigation for, I think it was what, Michelle Road or something like that, for something. So I don't see a way I could vote for this until that litigation is at least settled or determined as to whether we can even do that. I don't even think we can even do it, to be honest with you. And I would be very uncomfortable voting for this as long as that litigation is pending. Thank you.
Through the chair. Attorney Kelty, you had mentioned that you're going to go to planning, and the intent is to not partition the land. Has any thought been brought up, been put into partitioning this land? Making it a single-family structure on 2 lots?
No, since I fared so well last month with the division, and this is an existing condition which I think lends itself to the manner in which I'm trying to do it. We did discuss, but it would have been classic pork chop lot with about 20 feet of frontage for the rear. So in this instance, if we were to be successful in obtaining this variance, I could go asking for that waiver, and then if at the end of the day it could be condominiumized, giving exclusive easements over the front and the back. So it's a different way to skin the cat, and I was hopeful it would be met with some considerable enthusiasm.
Don't like skinning cats. Comments by the board, questions? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Please come up, state your name and address for the record. Keep to the subject matter, please. If your neighbor has already stated what you want to say, you can state your name and address for the record and say, I agree with the prior neighbor.
Hey, hello.
Address for the
My
record. Just once, don't.
Okay. Hi, my name is John McDonald. I live next door to the property. I live at 8 Summer Street. Couple of number one, you probably all know my sister and brother-in-law, Kurt and Mary Bellavance. They told me. Pork. The pork chop lots are not available in Peabody, which this property would be. My problem is I manage the Wadhurst, I work and I live in Peabody. I come home at night, I cannot get a parking space. Last night I had to park 4 blocks away. This is ridiculous. If they put this in, it's just not feasible with the additional. I mean, I think downtown Peabody has done a great job. But this the additional parking, you've got stanzies above it, all the apartments. It's just, and on that street, there's 2 churches. So if I come home on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, there's no place for me to park. I have to go 4 blocks away. It's just not right. And this property is not big enough to handle what they want to do. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Carmine DeFruscia, and I own 8 Summer Street, which is right next door. I don't think it's a good idea, only because they want to leave. Right now, there's 1 foot between the barn and my backyard, and it's a barn. It's a shed. It's a garage. It's not. There's no electricity. There's no water. There's no anything to that barn, and they're going to have to tear apart the whole neighborhood. And like he said, there's no parking. My tenants have no place to park. Most of the time we have to, there's no other way in and out. They would have to go through the side of that. And they stated that eventually they would want to split that lot in half to sell it as 2 different lots. I just don't think it's a good idea. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Costantia DeFruscia, 437 Lowell Street. To echo what John and Carmine have said, my father owns the building, 8 Summer Street. With the barn being simply 1 foot away, there's going to be no room in the back. I have a 2-year-old. I like to have my child run around in the back with his papa, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Unfortunately, this barn, not only is it falling apart, there is no running water. There's nothing going on with that. So it would have to be completely taken down and then re-put up. So unfortunately, I don't think it's a great idea, and the parking is an absolute nuisance. I mean, yes, I'm a mother, yes, I have a young child, but I can't go see my father anymore because there's absolutely nowhere to park between all the businesses, the condos, the apartments. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So I simply state that maybe we can try to vote against this. It's just really not fair. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Paul McGinnity. I own 13R Main LLC, the building, and I'm owner occupied. I also live there as a resident. I'm familiar with what's in front of me, and I don't understand it, so I can't support something I don't understand. And I also went through some of the zoning ordinances, and I think it's already mentioned, where you can't have 2 structures as it lays onto 1 property. It's also mentioned that it was a rooming house. Like for myself, living in downtown, seeing other projects, I'm very involved in the community, and I'm all for enhancements. I'm all for, bringing things to the community. And that's where I'm having another trouble, is seeing where does this help the neighborhood? Where does it help and benefit downtown? You know, the structure as it lay, they said there's a rooming house upstairs. Okay, why not make that into a two-family? It's an R2. To me, it makes no sense to have two separate structures where it was said tonight the property does not support that anyways. So again, like, I'm not against enhancing the property, so to speak. I'm opposing, you know, the way it's laid out in front of me. And that's what I have tonight. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Is in opposition? Attorney Kelty, anything you'd like to say?
Two things. We're not a subdivision. I think the board understands that we're not dividing this into two lots. I'm asking that this lot be able to be utilized as a two-family zone, which would, and then convert the garage. In light of the fact that I thought I had 5 votes and now we're down to 4, I would respectfully request that this matter be allowed to be withdrawn without prejudice.
Move to allow to withdraw without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, that takes care of that. Now, I just would like to say, we have lost a member. Dan Senzabaugh has resigned. So, moving forward, our next matter on the agenda is the residences at Endicott Street, 40 to 42 Endicott Street. We have the voting members being Attorney Zelotes, Mr. Osborne, Attorney Peabody, and myself, just so everybody knows, moving forward. We have some correspondences that need to be approved into the record. That would be November 4th, a Will Pollitt's memo, November 15th, a Will Pollitt's memo, November 8th, Attorney Panos memo, including 11/8/21 Hayes Engineering memo, 2 Will Pollitt's. November 2nd, revised architectural, and 11/4 revised site plans. December 20th, a late correspondence, Will Pollitt's memo. December 3rd, Attorney Panos memo, 27 Rear Farm Ave. December 7th, GFS memo. And December 10th, Hayes Engineering memo. I need a vote to accept that into the record.
So move to accept all the previously read correspondence.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, I believe we are now going to hear from Attorney Panos and the 40B comprehensive permit application, 40 to 42 Endicott Street.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Jason Panos, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. I'm here on behalf of the applicant owner, the residences at Endicott, LLC. Before I begin, as you can see, we have a PowerPoint, and I have paper versions of what is going to be presented. So if you'd like to follow along and take notes, I'd be happy to pass out what you're going to see on the screen. Oh, sure. All right. So as you know, this matter was opened, the hearing on this matter was opened on May 3rd of this year and continued to September 20th, and then again on continued to October 18th, and then again continued to November 15th, and again continued through tonight. By agreement between the board and the applicant, the time in which the board must close its hearing was extended to December 31st. We are prepared, I'm happy to say, to conclude the development, traffic, parking analysis and conclude our detailed analysis of civil items, including water, wastewater, stormwater, 21E environmental for the proposed development, as well as present development design features, lighting, and landscaping. By correspondence and materials, which you've just accepted into the record, provided by Hayes Engineering, Geological Field Services, and Vanessa and Associates to the board, the Department of Public Services, and the board's peer review consultants, and the applicant's responses were provided pursuant to DPS memoranda of November 4th and November 15th, with attachments which will be presented at tonight's hearing. And I understand that on behalf of the city and the board, Mr. Will Paulitz is here with his peer review consultants, again on behalf of the city, Rod Emery and Janet Bernardo for traffic, stormwater, and environmental, respectively. Additionally, we are in receipt of a DPS memorandum of today, December 20th. Essentially, we are concurring with all of the suggested conditions and recommendations. And also in conjunction with the materials provided in response to the outstanding DPS memoranda, Hayes Engineering prepared revised site plans, which are going to be presented this evening. As I indicated, we're happy to report that with regard to traffic and parking, 21E environmental issues, and all other outstanding matters, the applicant and its development team are certainly more in agreement than they are apart on substantive proposed project impacts with the DPS memoranda and corresponding peer review. And I believe that after the presentations tonight, at least our peer review will conclude. By way of project team introductions or reintroductions, Pat Tedisco is the manager of the applicant, and through Tedisco Properties LLC is the developer, consultant contractor, and he's here with us tonight. Tony Capicetti of Hayes Engineering is the project manager, and will discuss the technical aspects of the application, including project plans, stormwater management, conservation, landscaping and lighting, and also the 21E presentation. And Scott Thornton is here with us tonight from Vanessa and Associates, and will conclude the traffic discussion on behalf of the applicant. Unless you want me to, I can give you a brief 40B and development overview, and I can forego that because you've heard it before. But I will give you an overview of the development as to where we are today, and that'll be detailed in the technical presentation. But this is a redevelopment project which seeks to replace blighted and underutilized property with new housing opportunities for Peabody and regional residents. The project location, of course, is at 40 to 42 Endicott Street, located in the single-family residence District A zoning district. We propose 62 units of rental housing, which is 6 units less than what had been originally proposed in the application, you'll recall. And through the hearings that have been continued, through the peer review, through the recommendations that have resulted from both the public testimony and the technical consultant reviews, we've made adjustments and modifications, which you'll hear more about tonight. The proposed 86,190 square foot, six-story building, that's 5 stories above a parking deck, provides for 92 parking spaces. That's approximately 1 space per bedroom at a 1.5 parking space per unit ratio. The project will be served by municipal sewer and wastewater. Wastewater and water. Access to the site is proposed to and from Endicott Street alone via 2 site driveways. Access to and from the site via the easement over Berry Street to the rear over the city-owned property is not proposed. After completion of construction, however, the applicant's legal rights in the way shall be maintained, and emergency access through it, along with access by service vehicles, is proposed. The proposal takes advantage of existing topography which slopes down from Endicott Street in a southeasterly direction, that is, direction away from Endicott Street, by placing parking at grade and underground parking beneath the building and in the exterior. The unit mix is designed to minimize density impacts by proposing 41 bedroom units, 15 two-bedroom units, for a total of 55 out of the 62 units of 1 and 2 bedroom units, and 7 3-bedroom units, which is the minimum required by program guidelines. 16 units are proposed designated as affordable to those earning at 80% of the prescribed area median income, and 46 units are proposed designated at market rates to be determined. At a total of 92 parking spaces with 4 accessible parking spaces are proposed throughout the development. As I indicated, the proposed development parking ratio is 1.5 spaces per dwelling and 1 space per bedroom in satisfaction of the board's peer review requirement. Sidewalks and curbing are proposed through the front of the site to allow for easy ADA-compatible pedestrian access to the building and parking areas, and on the exterior of the site along Endicott Street, including ADA-accessible ramps. The applicant will also undertake installation of an ADA-compatible crosswalk at the recommendation of DPS and your peer review consultants at Farnham Park with installation of rapid rectangular flashing beacons. Bicycle racks are also proposed at the site adjacent to the building in the interior located in the parking garage by the entrance. Visitor parking, ride-share spaces, loading and unloading zones are proposed for better drive circulation adjacent to and throughout the site. The proposed redevelopment incorporates numerous infrastructure improvements and upgrades to install stormwater management and treatment where none exist, consistent with the standards prescribed by the DEP Stormwater Management Handbook. And I think you'll hear this tonight in more detail, but the city, through its Department of Public Services, have worked constructively and collaboratively with the applicant's development team, over the past several months to conclude peer review, which I believe will happen this evening. At least we will have nothing to add. Peer review was conducted within the parameters and requirements of 760 CMR 5605, and are to be made a part of the record before the ZBA in connection with rendering its decision, its ultimate decision on the application. And with that, we believe that the applicant, Mr. Tedisco, and the development team have addressed each of the outstanding peer review items, and you will hear that, which is evidenced by the DPS December 20th memo issued just this afternoon. And with that, and through the chair and the board, I'd like to turn it over to the technical presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. You're welcome.
Thank you. For the record, Tony Capichetti with Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts. I'll try and be brief. Project update. Just since the last time we've been here, we completed a full traffic study by Vanessa Associates that was submitted on November 8th. We responded to the minor outstanding stormwater comments also on November 8th to Horsley Witten. We made some minor revisions to the building. The first floor parking deck, we relocated the entrance to the middle of the building. That lines up across Parkview Lane. So those intersections are pretty much across from each other, which creates a safer situation for vehicles entering and exiting and separates the two driveway entrances to the site. The other driveway entrance is opposite a driveway on Endicott Street. So again, there's some concerns about headlights sweeping and that sort of issue. By lining them up to driveways and streets, we try and minimize that. We got a DPS review today, which closed out most of the outstanding items. There were recommendations for conditions that are agreeable to the applicant. We've gone through that letter, and we have no issues with those requested modifications. And we'll work with DPS in submitting additional detail prior to construction or prior to building permit as asked for, should the board move forward. Just to give you an idea, before I have Scott Thornton from Vanessa come up, I just wanted to show you the relocation of the entranceway. It's more in the middle of the building, which creates a small patio and courtyard here, and an additional patio and courtyard here, both accessible, this one from the main staircase in this area, and this one from the main lobby, and then another little courtyard that comes off with the main entrance at the drop-off space. That's the bulk of the changes that you haven't seen that would really affect you. We did increase the size of the stormwater area, but it's underground. It's really not going to change the aesthetic of the project any. And we do have an agreement, because we can't test where the building is currently, that once the existing building's torn down, we'll do additional soil testing, and if we can expand that stormwater area to provide even additional capacity, we'll do so at our expense. So I'll turn this over to Scott Thornton, because traffic was one of the key concerns of the board, and let him give a thorough review of traffic. And
Thank you very
go from
much.
there. Just hit the arrow.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chairman, or Chairwoman, and members of the board. For the record, Scott Thornton with Vanessa Associates. We prepared the traffic assessment for the project. And this slide is a good one to start with, because you can see that as Tony indicated, the driveways have been separated from what you've seen previously, with about 100 feet of separation, allowing those driveways to operate independently. And the drive, let's see if this works. Yeah. So the driveway to the left goes down below grade to parking at underneath the facility, and the driveway to the right has access to an at-grade parking facility. There's 5 visitor parking spaces located on the bottom level, accessed through that access point to the left, as well as the drop-off spaces that are accessed off to the right. So we had the benefit of peer review comments on the initial traffic application or traffic submittal, which really framed our traffic study. And we conducted a standard assessment and really looked at the points that were brought up by Department of Public Services and also by World Tech, your traffic consultant. So, there were some intersections that were, there was an intersection, the intersection of Endicott Street and Warren Street, that was requested to be reviewed. There were also some requests for additional data in terms of speeds on Endicott Street, traffic volumes on a peak hour basis, and all those items came together to form the traffic study that was submitted in November. This slide really shows the trip generation for the site, and in terms of on the daily basis, the 62 units, we expect to generate about 282 vehicles per day. Based on the counts that we did on Endicott Street, that represents about 4% of the observed daily volume of 6,700 vehicles per day. In terms of the peak hour traffic, which is really the critical numbers to review, because that's what everyone is exposed to. People are going to work or school, coming home from work or school in the morning and the evening peak hours. So that's what people have context for. That's what they recognize when they see a big increase in traffic. And the increases due to this project are not a big increase in traffic. 23 trips during the morning peak hour represents 3.6% of the observed 624 vehicles per hour on Endicott Street in the morning, which is there currently. The 24 trips generated during the PM peak hour represents 2.9% of the observed 829 vehicles per hour that are there currently. When we add that traffic into the overall traffic study area, outside of this specific stretch of Endicott Street, the traffic increases are limited to 0.7 to 1.7% on a peak hour basis. So when we add the traffic into the Warren Street and Endicott Street intersection, we're looking at increases in delay of about a second for the side streets. So not a large increase in traffic, not a large effect due to the project. And that's borne out by this slide. The intersection will operate for Endicott and Warren Street. The intersection will operate at level of service D or better, which represents an average delay of 25 to 35 seconds. Proposed site driveways are both estimated to operate at level service B, which is a range of 10 to 15 seconds per vehicle. Intersections operating above level service E are acceptable according to DOT guidelines. And again, we don't have that. We have intersections that are operating better than that. And we don't see that the project would have an adverse impact on the prevailing traffic conditions. This slide is really hard to see, but it basically summarizes the site distances out at the driveway locations. And so we went out, we did measurements of the conditions based on AASHTO requirements, and the speeds that we collected out there were, I think, 32 miles per hour northbound and 33 southbound for the 85th percentile, which is what drives the site distances. So basically, when there's no cars parked in the vicinity of the driveways, we have greater than 500 feet of site distance, which meets all the applicable standards. So we're recommending, at least in the range of 20 feet of either side of the driveways, that there shouldn't be any parking for vehicles. But I think we've, as Attorney Panos mentioned, we've had a number of peer review comments. We've had some comments back from Department of Public Services. In general, things are pretty well closed out. We're adding push-button RFBs at the Farnham Park crosswalk to make it easier for pedestrians to get back and forth across Endicott Street. Fixing the park side of the wheelchair ramp there for the crosswalk for compliance sake. The parking ratio that's proposed, 1.5 spaces per unit, is actually higher than the demand that's been observed in the Perfect Fit parking study, the Phase 3 update, which looked at 4 towns, including Peabody. So we think that the project won't have an adverse impact, and we think that the parking can accommodate the site. And I think that's it for traffic. I'll turn it back over to Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, just a little more detailed look at the site plan. The four major changes, just to make the board aware again, we relocated the driveway opposite Parkview. We also relocated a catch basin that was kind of offset into the center of the drive. We'll change that to a manhole and set a new catch basin along the gutter line. We added on-site catch basins to pick up as much of the water coming onto the site as possible, and then directed that to the infiltration area, and we expanded that to the maximum extent practicable. And again, we're going to do some more testing in this area here and look to relocate some utilities as well once the building's down and we can verify that. One of the other comments that did come up was about soils on site. There was a release a few years back, so we will have an LSP. We've agreed to that on site during any excavation. That was a condition that DPS had requested, and we're more than amenable to meet that. I believe it's also required by law in working in that soil. Landscape and lighting, this hasn't changed greatly. We have some street trees that will make sure that the vegetation's up at least 5 feet so it doesn't impede any sight lines. Lighting is all dark sky compliant and downcast with minimal spillover, and we've been asked to maintain 0 spillover. The lights are set at 12 feet. I did a quick analysis today. If I drop them down to 10.5 feet, this half a candle foot contour pulls back into our site here and here. So that shouldn't be a difficult task, and again, we'll provide that analysis prior to construction. And then landscaping is also in the landscape islands that we have. Obviously, the majority of the building here is, the majority of the site is building, so we also plan to have some planter boxes up in the patios that are underground here, but covered by the rooftop of the building. The architecture, again, just kind of showing you the various sides of the building, the floor plan that has changed with the access. Second floor, lower level parking remains the same as you've seen before. The unit layout, very similar to before. There's no changes on the first floors. The only change was 2 meetings ago, we showed you that in order to work with massing, we had stepped back that upper level and reduced the units up on the upper level. I'll let Jason finish the conclusions and benefits if you want for the project, and that should wrap us up.
So good evening again, Jason Panos for the record. So in summary, we've done a little highlight of what we believe are some of the benefits of this project that have resulted from the discussions we've had, the testimony we've heard, the peer review, and the recommendations. So again, all 62 units of affordable housing produced by this proposed development will count toward the city's subsidized housing inventory. The inflow and infiltration project that was recommended by DPS will increase sewer capacity in the Lowell Street area and will be paid for entirely and by the developer in an amount of in excess of $100,000. Again, an I&I project, inflow and infiltration, identified by DPS as helpful to the improving the sewer lines down Lowell Street. Farnham Park improvements for pedestrian safety will be paid for and constructed by the developer. There will be stormwater improvements to treat runoff where there is none currently, which will ultimately improve quality on abutting properties, including the city-owned property to the rear. Bike racks and the membership to the North Shore Transportation Management Authority will encourage alternative modes of transportation. The lighting that we propose for the project will be dark sky compliant, as Tony just indicated, with no light trespass from the site to abutting properties. And there will be no stockpiling of snow that will affect on-site parking. In other words, we will be contracting with a private snow removal company that will truck that snow off-site, and it will not be stockpiled anywhere on the site and will not impact the existing parking that we provide. So with that, we're more than happy to entertain questions, comments. I'm not sure if you want to hear from your peer review consultants.
Mr. Politz, would you like to speak? A little bit.
Good evening. For the record, William Politz with the Department of Public Services and City Engineer. This evening, we also have Rod Emery from World Tech Engineering, who is the peer review consultant for the city and relates to traffic and pedestrian accommodations. And we also have Janet Bernardo from Horsley Witten Group in respect to stormwater, and not with us today, but a consultant at Horsley Witten Group also took a look at the 21E issues in regards to the site. So I can certainly give the board a brief overview, if you'd like, of the conditions that we're recommending that if the board take action this evening, that they implement on this project. As Jason and Tony and Scott from the applicant's team have all indicated, they've been working with the city and their peer review consultants, and at this point, we actually have no more additional, I guess, questions or comments for them to answer at this point. We have provided this evening as a late add conditions that we would request that the zoning board would entertain if they were to move forward on this project. And I can very quickly go through these. If you have any additional questions, I can certainly go more in depth. But the first one is in respect to the applicant providing the city a project to reduce inflow and infiltration in the source system upstream of their project in order to create capacity in the source system to allow their sewer to enter in without causing detrimental effects to the city sewer. The second one is the applicant working with the city to ensure the grading of the property does not allow any stormwater to enter under the building, because once stormwater enters into the building, into the parking garage, is required to be sent to the source, so to eliminate that. We're requesting that they have a licensed site professional be on site when they're excavating and their soil management. We don't want to see any stockpiling or temporary sedimentation in the area of infiltration on the property that would cause detrimental effect to it. Any fill material that's being brought in to supplement the infiltration area will need to comply with Title V sand. Myself and a representative from Hayes Engineering will have to do what they refer to as a bed bottom inspection once the contractor excavates out the soil and prepare to install the infiltration system. We'll come out and take a look at it to make sure it's been done properly. Because this project does not have a notice of intent associated with it, we're requesting that per the O&M of the stormwater, that the applicant provide proof to our department on a yearly basis in perpetuity moving forward that they've actually done what they're supposed to do in respect to cleaning the stormwater. Snow is to be removed from the site. It can't be stockpiled in a manner that it reduces parking spaces, hinders access by pedestrians, or creates a slight line of sight issue leaving the property, and they're not to push it onto the city right away or dispose of it in the city's property, 5 Berry Street. We requested that the applicant remove the flashing beacon at Farnham Park and install 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacons out there, and to upgrade the one side by the park itself to a proper ADA ramp. We're saying that the applicant should work with the police department in respect to restricting parking from Berry Street up to the two new parking spots that they're proposing. And this will allow the residents leaving the property of 40 to 42 Endicott Street proper sight distance as they enter onto the street. We also recommend that they work with the police department in respect to restricting a time out there for the two new parking spots that they're providing on Endicott Street. There'll be public parking, so it shouldn't be restricted to just the complex, but it should be timed in the fact that they won't be used by residents overnight. The next one, basically, in order to make sure the waste hauling contractor doesn't have to cross the double yellow line to make a wide turn into it, we're looking to restrict their access from the south. We're looking to confirm that the applicant does have 12 on-site parking bicycle spots, that they will join the North Shore Transportation Management Association for a minimum of 5-10-year commitment, that any trees that are associated with this project or vegetation are maintained in a way that they won't interfere with sightline, that when they install their lights and in the future they won't have light trespass. It's a pretty dense neighborhood in respect to abutting neighbors, so we don't want to see their lights bleeding into the neighbor's property. And that we ask before they get a building permit that additional soil testing, as Tony had commented on, is conducted once the building comes down, and to see if there's any room to expand the infiltration system. Currently, they're in compliance with the state standards, but we're looking to see if we can get any more infiltration on site. The next one talks about their project is supposed to tie the roof drainage into the infiltration system, so we'll require a plan showing what their architect is in compliance with what Hayes Engineering has designed in respect to that. The last item before the building permit would be we'd like to see a plan that shows specifically the sidewalk in front of their property, that it's in compliance with the ADA standards, that they have a better plan that develops the two parking spots that they're proposing, and that they remove the driveway cut that exists between themselves and 30 Endicott Street that won't be utilized anymore to finalize the sidewalk across their property. And then the last item is standard stuff. 14 days prior to construction, we're going to want to see the O&M that they provided signed, an illicit discharge statement signed, and a sketch locating the stormwater BMPs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, if I could just add a couple of things. I'll be very brief. One thing that I neglected to mention, but it dovetails nicely into Mr. Pollitt's presentation, is that we have committed that 70% of the affordable units, which is approximately, it's actually exactly 11 units, will be available for local preference, meaning those who live in the city of Peabody, grew up in the city, work in the city, can no longer afford to live here because of the exploding housing costs, will have access to these units, so long as they meet other eligibility criteria. Also, I know this has come up as an issue in the past, and I just want to remind the board that in my October 6th correspondence to the board, it was requested through Stacy Burnson in Community Development that we agree that the units be maintained in perpetuity, and we are happy to do so, so long as those, the housing produced by this project remains out of line with the zoning ordinance. In other words, if that ever becomes, and this is stating the status of the law, if the building ever becomes conforming to applicable zoning ordinances, then the affordability restrictions would expire automatically by law. But as long as that doesn't happen, and I can't see it happening in an R1A district, we will maintain the affordability in perpetuity. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else wanting to speak? No? Okay, any questions by the board at this point? What about any neighbors? Anybody in the audience wish to speak again or at all? Come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Murray. I live on Orange Street, which is right around the corner from this proposed development. I have been in opposition of this since the start of it, which was, the first I heard of it was around February of 2020. I am fairly new to Peabody, so I really don't know a lot about the ins and outs of how to find out what's going on in my neighborhood at that time, but I found out about it. Once I heard what was proposed, I already knew that I didn't like what was there, but I turned to my elected representatives to try to voice my opposition. And I'm here to ask that none of the zoning changes that are required be allowed. There are people who live there already, who have for a very long time, who have invested their life's work and their life's money into their property, and I don't believe this is a good fit for the neighborhood. I thought it was ironic that the very first thing stated today at this meeting was, in explaining what this board was about, I wrote down a quote that said, "There are zoning laws for the protection of you and your neighbors." And we are the neighbors, and we're asking for your protection. We would like to be sure that what gets put there isn't going to ruin our quality of life. When I turn out onto Warren Street, most of the time I can't take a left onto Endicott. The traffic is already backed up all the way to where they're proposing this building go. So most of the time I take a right, and even if I'm heading south on 128, I have to go north in order to get south because the traffic is already backed up. I guess I kind of disagree with how much traffic is going to be generated when they say 23 vehicles at the peak time out of 65 units or 62. I find that a little hard to believe that only 1 out of 3 people would be leaving at the peak time. So I have a concern about the traffic, and I understand that they lowered the number, but the original number, when they originally brought this to the city, was for, I believe it was 42. I wrote down too many notes, and I already forget. It was 38, maybe. And then when that didn't go through, now suddenly we're at 62, and I think we're supposed to think this is commendable, and it's not. Yes, he lowered it, but he's already doubled it. So no, we're not happy in this neighborhood. So those of us who live with this every day are really asking you to please not bend the rules as much as they need to be bent in order for something like this to go through. Because you're our last hope. We've tried every other way that we could, and it just keeps moving forward and moving forward. So we're here asking for the last thing that we can ask for, which is don't change all the rules so that they can put something in there that really doesn't belong there.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if I could. I just have a question for Will, if you could. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You can ask your question first if you want. No. My name is Patricia Rennick, and I live at 49 Endicott Street, and I also have been opposed to this since day one. I didn't oppose so much as having 25 units or so there, but as the other woman said, this is really getting out of control. We do all live there. We're just asking if you can respect the zoning laws so that we all get to live in the same type of area that we bought in originally, which was an R1A district. The height of the building is too much, and you keep saying you can't lower the density, but if you lower the density, you're going to solve all the problems that we're all worried about. You're talking about don't let them park on either side of their driveways. Well, we already don't have places for our relatives or friends or anybody that comes to visit. We already can't park on one side of the street, and now you're talking about taking away the other side of the street, so we can never have company come and visit safely. There won't be any place for them to stay. We have a lot of accidents in that area. We have a lot of traffic. I also cannot believe that you think only 23 cars will leave in the morning between school and work. Out of all those cars, 92 plus, because you know there's going to be more than that. And then coming home at night, only 24 people come home at night. When I look out my window at night, I see everybody in our neighborhood coming home. So I can't see people moving into this one that don't come home at night. There's a lot more. I don't know what study he was checking on, but you look at our neighborhood, everybody is driving to and from school and to and from work. So we also have, besides all the accidents and traffic, we have the safety of all the children that are walking. And with that many units, and especially 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, that means you have more children living in there. It's going to be the safety of those children as well as the safety of our children to be able to walk with all that traffic. We can't get out of our driveways now, but we do what we have to do. But if you take away our few spots over there, when a trash truck comes or a recycle truck comes, that's when they should be doing the study. Nobody can go up and down the streets then. The emergency vehicles, unfortunately, I have a couple elderly neighbors, and the ambulances come a lot, and they can't even come in and stop because there's no place for them to get to without blocking the entire street. You can't go either way. And you're only allowed to park on one side now, so it's not going to be any better with all those other cars parking there. And as far as all the water and stuff, I don't know if any of you drove down the street during that last storm. There was flooding all over the place, but that's not when you're out checking all this water coming down and all the storage and all the backup and all the flooding of our houses, because you're all home, but we're all looking out our windows or trying to get into our driveways or even drive down the street without the water coming up over the top. I know you see those cement barriers right down the other end of Endicott Street. They've been there forever. Half the time that end of the street is totally blocked off, so you can't even go all the way down the street. You're already getting detoured. So, and as far as the egress coming through the back, that's a very thin egress. It's not going to be enough room for emergency and stuff. And what if the city does want to dress up that area back there? What is that going to do for the city? This isn't only going to affect just us neighbors. It's going to affect the city. It's going to overcrowd the schools. It's going to make it unsafe for the children that'll live in there and the children that are going to move in there. It's also going to create a lot of noise because, as I said before, if you get that many people together, especially on a nice warm night, everybody's going to want to be outside, and that property is not big enough. That's not even close to how much property they're supposed to have for that many units. So where are they all going to be? And how quiet can they all be if they're all condensed in a small area? I saw where the parking was, and the parking out back, there's not a lot of parking to get in there. And now you're saying you're just going to divert the water. It's going to all go down to city property, so maybe it will get less water near my house, but it's certainly going to do something to the city property, which is going to cost a lot more money in the long run. And I didn't prepare a speech, but everything you were talking about today, just looking at that, it just it doesn't make sense because you're not living there to see this in an everyday life. We watch it, we live it. We all love Peabody, or we wouldn't be living here. And we really are just asking the zoning board to consider everybody and not just Mr. Tedisco. If you just lower the height and the density of it, it's going to solve a lot of these problems. There won't be as many kids that are trying to get to school. There's not going to be as many cars trying to get in and out. There's not going to be as much wastewater, and there's still going to be plenty of profit because, as she said before, at 38 units, he already knew he was going to make enough of a profit that he wanted to do that. So I don't understand why he wants to go up to 62 and just disrespect everybody in the neighborhood by doing that. So we're just asking you, please, consider our feelings, consider our lifestyles, and just try to keep that in mind when you're deciding on this, because he's already going to make a profit. We're not asking him not to. We're not asking him not to beautify it, but we're just asking to do something that's reasonable for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maria Sena, and I am at 46 Endicott. I just want to add the continuation that how we are, my husband and I, we are against the project. We are very close, to the construction. It is very uncomfortable. It's going to be a very tall building. Like the neighbors are saying, it's going to create a lot of traffic. We didn't necessarily write anything down, but when I stood up here, last time that I was here, I was filled with emotions because I just bought the property. I bought the property a year ago. When I bought it, I didn't know that this big construction was happening. It wasn't mentioned to us. And to walk into this is not something that's comfortable. It's not something that feels good. Luckily, we've been surrounded by nice neighbors, but I mean, this is insane, honestly, in plain words. It doesn't work for us. It's gonna create, like the neighbors say, it's gonna create the traffic. It's unsafe for children. I have children, small children. I am concerned about the ins and out, who's going to be coming in, the lighting, is it going to be here in my bedroom, am I going to be able to put my kids in bed at 8 o'clock, all of that. So I am appealing to, for all of you who are in the power to reconsider this, and not just to see it as a profit. There's many ways that profit can be made, but do think about the people who did vote for you. Those people who put you on that chair, do think about those, because it's those people sitting there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Steve Klein. I live at 35 Warren Street. And before I get into my written remarks, I'd like to comment on this. First of all, the parking, that's ludicrous. You got 93 units, and they're not even all one bedroom. They're 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. You're going to have 93 spaces for 68 cars, and there is no on-street parking available. And you're going to tell me that there'll be enough space for them, all their visitors, any workmen that have to come in? That's impossible. And number 2, the parking, the traffic, we've gone over this before. The traffic is crazy right now. And it's not even so much in the early morning and 5 o'clock rush hours. It's like from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock, because it starts because of the cars, all the traffic coming down from the middle school. And the other thing is, right now, it's like last week on Monday. I was coming from Wilson Square. I had to take Berry Street to get to my house on Warren Street because the traffic was backed up almost to 4042 Endicott. And the other thing, they come up with all these figures. Nobody has even begun to mention the 133 units you've already approved for King Street. Now, you're going to have to add that traffic to the existing traffic plus the traffic from Endicott Street. So, tonight I've chosen to speak. I didn't know what they were going to speak on. It was a subject 2 meetings ago. The last meeting was postponed because of illness. And I want to speak to the density of the proposal. At the last meeting in October, Attorney Pano spoke to density as if it has been resolved, and the reality couldn't be further from the truth. Nothing concerning this application has been resolved, especially density. No one wants this proposal to end up like the King Street project, with one board member directly stating that his no vote was due to the lack of discussion and questioning between board members concerning the density of that project. So this is not me stating that the board did an insufficient job concerning the density issue at the King Street project. This is not some third party stating that the neighbors' concerns were not properly addressed by this board. This was one of your own board members that said this, stating that the density question was not properly addressed by this board, and although it is a different development, Attorney Panos led both projects, and we certainly do not want the same result. The first item I wish to discuss, and as of yet has not been brought up, is that of 70 Endicott Street. The parcel at 70 Endicott Street is almost identical in size to 4042, with both parcels being approximately 0.6 acres in area. 70 Endicott Street is a city-owned property and has been vacant for some time. About 8 years ago, I attended a meeting here at City Hall concerning this parcel, and at that time, the mayor explained that the city had put the property out to bid. They had received a proposal for 8 condo units, and the city was in favor for 2 main reasons. The new structure would not be greater in height than the existing building. Certainly not the case here on this proposal. And number 2, the new building would conform to the existing structures already found within the neighborhood. Unfortunately, the proposal was withdrawn due to the cost of cleanup of pollution found on the parcel. Moving forward to last year, at that time, City Councilor McGinn came forward at a council meeting, and he stated that the city should be moving forward with the cleanup of 70 Endicott Street parcel, but stated emphatically that only 8 units would be allowed. So here we have 2 parcels, approximately the same in size, separated by just 2 blocks on the same side of the same street. On one, the city is going to propose 8 units. On the other, Tedesco wants to build 62 units. I'll let you decide if this makes any sense. Next, I would like to discuss the reduction of 6 units by the developer. At a previous meeting, the board chair went on at some length commending the reduction and went on to say she had not previously seen such action taken concerning a 40B application. I guess the chair had a memory lapse in that concerning the 40B proposal at Wynona Street, the developer has offered a reduction from 300 units to 220 units, an 80-unit reduction, not 6. Also, the abutters in Tedesco have been down the reduction road before. We'll go back to last year's special permit application by Tedesco. Attorney Panos has already stated that this was a totally different proposal, but the fact of the matter is that application was by the same developer for the same parcel. And without that special permit application and its following actions, the current 40B application would not exist. On March 12th of last year, there was an in-person city council meeting concerning Tedesco's special permit application. Many members of the public, over 24, attended the meeting to object, but were not given the opportunity to speak. The meeting was recessed and continued at the petitioner's request. On May 28th, after seeing the pushback of the neighbors, Tedesco reduced his proposal from 42 units to 38 units, a 10% reduction by removing part of the top floor. Sound familiar? On June 11th, Tedesco's special permit application was approved for 38 units. At no time prior to this did the developer present to any other board or commission in the city of Peabody, even though such submission was a prerequisite under City Council Rule 17, a fatal flaw that was raised at that time by Councilor Ann Manning Martin. After the City Council approved Tedesco's permit application, Councilor Tedesco put forward motions having the effect that all special permits applicants must comply with the Rule 17 and seek approval of all necessary boards and commissions prior to presenting an application to the City Council. The process followed by Tedesco departed from established procedure and tacitly acknowledged by Tedesco and the City Council, his motion carried. So basically, in summation, Tedesco broke Rule 17 of the City Council when filing the special permit application. Then the City Council broke their own Rule 17 by accepting and approving the said application. The City Council then passed Tedesco's motions, making it impossible for anyone else to submit their application and get it approved in the manner in which Tedesco did. Only for him. Because of this ludicrous and biased manner in which this application was handled, the abutters to the parcel sued Tedesco and the Peabody City Council. To again avoid pushback from the existing neighborhood and avoid litigation of the lawsuit, Tedesco gave up his special permit and within a few months filed a 40B application in an attempt to again bypass pushback from the abutters. To summarize, Tedesco is requesting an almost 8 times increase in units over what the city believes is a reasonable amount for a parcel of that size. The board chairperson commended the developer for the reduction in units at an earlier meeting, but totally failed to question Attorney Panos as to how he was suggesting a 6-unit reduction when at the September meeting, during a somewhat heated exchange, Attorney Panos stated to board member Mr. Osborne that it was impossible to deviate the density and keep the development fiscally viable. So what has changed to make the 62 units viable? Number 4, so far Tedesco last year proposed 42 units, then took it down to 38 units for the special permit application. This year, for the 40B, Tedesco has proposed 68 units, saying he needed that many to make a profit. And at that time, to keep it fiscally viable. And then suddenly, 4 weeks later, he offered a reduction to 62 units. Even at 62 units, this would still be the densest development in the city. I hope in the future this board starts a negotiation at some reasonable figure rather than accepting what Attorney Payno suggests, as in the case of the King Street project. The reduction of 68 to 62 units is not a concession, but rather an insult to the neighbors. Number 5, and on a different note, the question of safe harbor. At the last meeting, board member Mr. Osborne read a statement concerning previous actions taken pertaining to this application. One area mentioned was concerning safe harbor and read as followed, and I quote, "To assist the ZBA in our decision, some decision-making process, the board has to depend on the expertise of the various city department heads, since there are often deadlines set for initiating various actions which often require pre-existing approval submitted by certain dates. In regard to 4042 Endicott Street, the board did express our desire to explore the possibility of applying for safe harbor. We were informed by the city that the deadline had passed and we could not file, and the board has absolutely no reason to question the information we received." End of quote. I have watched all the Zoom meetings and have attended all the in-person meetings, and no safe harbor discussions have ever taken place. That means the board has admitted it has discussed safe harbor behind closed doors. This is against open meeting rules and in contradiction of the very reason for this board to conduct public hearings on applications. Total transparency concerning future projects and the protection of the current residents' quality of life and the character of their neighborhood are the very foundation of the ZBA's existence. And this ZBA is accomplishing none of the above. Safe Harbor was submitted for the King Street project. Safe Harbor was not submitted for 4042 Endicott Street. Safe Harbor was then filed for Winona Street. Is this a blatant display of unequal representation or another case of favorable bias towards Tedesco? My question is, whose job was it to submit the safe harbor request on time? Was it the board chairman, the board secretary? Someone was not doing their job, and the residents want to know who and why.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, everybody. Right off the...
For the record, please.
Sure. My name is Donna Klein. I live at 35 Warren Street. One thing I would like to voice from the very start is that I hope no action will be taken this evening on this project due to the fact that it's just 5 days away from Christmas, and people who had wanted to come weren't able to come, either because they're traveling, or another reason is because of COVID. There were a lot of people that are still ambivalent to come out in public. I have in front of me a letter from the mayor, as well as communication from Ann Manning Martin and Jared Hockman in regards to correspondence that the board had received but was never read aloud. And there are a lot of people out there that unfortunately aren't internet connected. So what I would like to do is to take the time and read both their letters, because I think not only do the residents of Ward 3 need to be aware that these letters were written, but the city residents as well. In any case, here it goes. The letter is dated May 13th to Fran Gallucci, Chairperson, Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals, Peabody City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960, regarding 4042 Endicott Street. Dear Ms. Gallucci, I respectfully request that the Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals consider asserting a safe harbor request with the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development relative to Endicott LLC's proposed 68-unit development at 4042 Endicott Street in Peabody. Attached, please find a proposed request outlining the history of 4042 Endicott Street and our arguments in support of this request. I was extremely grateful that the Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals supported my request to assert safe harbor with the King Street proposal. The request was properly denied by DHCD because our arguments failed to meet the criteria to be granted safe harbor. However, our situation has changed significantly since that earlier request. I am very pleased to report that we have been able to add 116 units, and then in parentheses it says residences at Farm Avenue, LLC, to Peabody Subsidized Housing Inventory, SHI, since the submittal, and Massachusetts DHCD has certified our SHI number at 10.11%. I believe we have a strong claim to assert safe harbor and is consistent with past actions. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully submitted, Edward A. Betancourt, Jr., Mayor, City of Peabody. Okay, the next correspondence to Fran Gallucci, Chairperson, Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., regarding Endicott Street 40B application request for safe harbor assertion. Dear Chairperson Gallucci, let us first thank you and your board for the many hours of volunteer work serving the City of Peabody in such an important role. The increased amount of time required lately of the ZBA and its members has not gone unnoticed and is greatly appreciated. We wish to reach out to you to request the ZBA consider asserting safe harbor with the Department of Housing and Community Development, the DHCD. We are aware that a similar request was honored by the board with respect to the King Street 40B application, and that assertion was denied by DHCD. Much has changed since that decision from the state. Unmet criteria for denial of King Street claim for safe harbor as outlined by the state have since been relative to the Endicott Street application. These two criteria are, and then there's a bullet, Peabody now has an approved housing production plan, HPP, effective March 4th, 2021, and then parentheses it says 23 days prior to the 40B application for Endicott Street. In respective of the due diligence and hard work of our city's community development department in drafting and said plan, inaction on the part of the city council left the city and its boards without this important tool to maintain better control and oversight of housing production. Per DHCD, the approved HPP reduces our required total number of units for Peabody to meet safe harbor status from 443 units, or 2% of the 22,135 year-round total housing units, to 111 units, or 0.5%. This number was met on March 22nd, 2021, with the issuance of a comprehensive permit for residences at Farm Ave. The next bullet reads, to the impressive commitment of the ZBA to navigate a successful win-win friendly 40B project at Farm Ave, Peabody, is currently and has expressly stated in excess of 10% SHI eligibility housing. Peabody has increased its SHI percentage from 9.6 to 10.1 percentage as entered into record at the opening of the public hearing on the Endicott Street project on May 3rd, 2021. This percentage is effective March 22nd, 2021, when the ZBA issued the comprehensive permit for the residences of Farm Ave totaling 116 units. In addition to these rationale for asserting safe harbor, we respectfully ask the ZBA to assert a third safe harbor claim. This claim is based on the special permit that the Peabody City Council granted to the petitioner for residential development at this site on June 11th, 2020. Shortly after the issuance of the special permit, the petitioner elected to abandon the permit. That all occurred within 1 year of the petitioner's application pursuant to MGL Chapter 40B, therefore violating the cooling off period recognized in the safe harbor provisions. As the ZBA attempted in good faith to protect the Emerson Park neighborhood by asserting safe harbor, we respectfully request the neighborhood of nearby Endicott Street be afforded that same consideration and contend that the board in the city of Peabody have a much better standing at this time to assert safe harbor and must do so within 15 days of the opening of the public hearing of May 3rd, 2021. Thank you for your time and consideration for this request. Sincerely, Ann Manning Martin, member, Peabody City Council, and Jared Hockman, member, Peabody School Committee. And there was a CC on this to Mayor Tim Betancourt, Director Kurt Bellavance, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay, now I'm just going to talk from the top of my head. I have to agree, I think it was Tricia Rennick that had mentioned about the numbers with the traffic. I really would like to know whether or not, when the study was done, was it done during the pandemic or not? Another concern, as you know, I've mentioned it once before, is the safety of the kids that live not just on Endicott Street, but on Warren and on Berry as well. The traffic is just, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. We had one instance back a couple of years ago where a toddler got onto Endicott Street, and if it hadn't been from an employee from Salem Hospital intervening, Lord knows what would have happened. Another thing that hasn't been brought up at all, and maybe, unless I missed it, would be the rodent situation that's happening. Okay, that's a concern. We would like to see that addressed as well. I'm trying to think, is there any, I don't want to be here all night. There's so much to be said. I do hope, like I said earlier, that you will consider the fact that it is a big holiday week and people that wanted to be here couldn't be here. What else? I don't know. I'm just a little bit baffled with why we weren't considered for safe harbor and how that came about. I'll be very frank with you. Somebody came to me and said, "You're not living on the right side of the tracks." And that hurt. That hurt, because I know better. I know better. With that, I have nothing else to say, just that I really hope that the board will take into consideration the love this neighborhood has for one another, the quality of life for this neighborhood, and I guess that would be it. That would be it.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Chair, can we get a 2-minute recess, please?
Minute recess.
What was happening? They were holding.
Anybody else from the audience? We all set? Oh,
Hello, my name is Stephanie Peach. I live at 19 Margin Terrace in Peabody, and I was recently elected to represent this neighborhood, so I'd be remiss if I didn't speak again tonight. I understand that the deadline for this project is the 31st, which was already extended. I don't know how all of that works, but I would request that we extend that again. If the deadline is in a week, I would assume this would be the last opportunity for public comment. if we were to close the public hearing tonight, it is the week of holiday. We have not yet to be able to see this full project presented to us as a whole. We have seen bits and pieces as we've gone, but as a whole, tonight we got as a whole, very brief overview. But if we were to be able to have at least one additional public hearing where it could be presented to more people, not on a holiday week, and possibly include a remote participation option as the COVID numbers continue to rise, we would be able to actually do justice to the public. Regardless of whether this is approved or denied, that is an opportunity that should be given to our residents, and I feel very, very strongly about that. A lot of people are traveling right now. Many people, don't know what's going to be discussed or when it's going to be discussed because this process is very new. I feel it's been a learning process for the board, and it's been obviously a learning process for the public. So 40B is much different than putting a garage on your house, and I understand that. I have a few questions, and one of the neighbors did bring it up as regard to no parking from Berry Street forward. I do know that there's always cars parked there, so I assume it's the residents that are parking there. Those neighbors might not be here tonight to speak. That's the first that we're hearing, that's a definite suggestion for public safety reasons. I agree that is a valid point, but those neighbors, what are they going to do? Where do they park their car? Where do they have their guests park if you can't park all on Endicott Street from Berry Street forward? Just giving them an opportunity to speak on that. I think if anything that comes out of this process, we start to learn more as a board, as a community, how this works. I would love to see a positive come out of this, where there's just kind of a more transparent understanding of the entire process so people know when they can come, when they can speak. When this was on Zoom, when this hearing first began, I was attending those Zoom meetings, but it was very confusing as to when could the public speak, when could they not. There was a lot of submitting of letters, which is always encouraged, and I know the board encourages that. I don't know how much weight a letter carries versus being able to come in front of the board in person and speak, or attend a Zoom if that's more comfortable for people, to actually speak maybe off a cuff instead of planning a letter. So in regards to a comment that was just made about the rodents as well, I believe there's a new requirement from, I believe, within the building permit that you have to treat for rodents for any new projects. If that's not a requirement, I would encourage the board to include that as a requirement for this project. And then I would ask the developer if whatever steps are taken to prevent a rodent issue during construction, work with the neighbors as well. Moving forward, I've seen it in other neighborhoods where they've done some traps and bait, but it hasn't worked as well, and they've come to the neighborhood and they've increased that. So I'd ask the developer, to be open to that moving forward as well. But I guess my main thing tonight is I'm concerned that the December 31st deadline was brought up tonight. I do understand that was an extension. I would request that there's at least one more public hearing where we can see this project in depth with remote access to those who can't attend in person, so that the neighbors, the general public has one last opportunity to see this project from start to finish. We don't necessarily need to see where we started, we just need to see where we're at, because that's what's important. So that's my request to the board, that we potentially extend that deadline one more time to include one more public hearing, and ask the developer and his team to come back for an overarching presentation, so that the public has at least one more opportunity to speak that's not 5 days before a major holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. I just do have a tiny comment. So it's been mentioned a couple of times tonight about the meeting being tonight, right before Christmas. So it's Christmas for us also. And our agenda is set 1 year prior. So our 2022 calendar is already set for next year. Yeah, you know, we meet the third Monday of the month, unless it is a holiday or Patriots' Day or something. I'm sorry that this is 5 days before Christmas, but this meeting was already set last year, and last year we didn't know that we would be in this situation. So I would just like to clear that up. As far as asking for a continuance for 1 more year, another month, Attorney Panos, we all know that, would you extend this for another month?
No. And the reason being is the original 180-day period lapsed sometime in October rather. There were outstanding peer review issues, and out of respect for this board, we extended that for an additional 2 months. And now we're at a point where we have come to conclusion with the city and the ZBA's hired peer review consultants, and so we see no reason to extend beyond the 2 months we've already extended. So no,
Okay.
I don't think we can entertain that.
So for those of you, a tiny bit of explanation. You asked, I asked. It is his choice not to extend. If we decide that we are not going to close the public hearing tonight and we're going to keep on going, that doesn't work because they get what's called constructive approval. What that means is all bets are off. They get approval. It's called constructive approval. I know that 40Bs are, they're tricky. We have a whole workbook on all the laws, all the regulations. I don't see why we can't maybe make some booklets. And I mean, you can download it online. It's not cut and dry like the 40As. 40As meaning the garages and the decks. This is lots and lots and lots of rules and regulations that we are bound by. It's not, okay, well, you know, yeah, we really don't like this, so we'll try to finagle a couple of feet, a couple of inches. There are strict rules and regulations that we are bound by. So the 1 month was denied. We have to uphold that. So we will close the public hearing tonight. I have to tell you, we have no choice. We have no choice. We have to. That being said, Mr. Osborne, you wanted to speak.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Just a couple things. First to Will, is Will still here? During peer review, I did notice that the applicant did satisfy a lot. But one thing I did notice, is there anything mentioned, or should there be, from either DPS or maybe even the police department, as to a plan of action during construction? I don't see anything of prohibiting trucks from parking on main roads and things like that. Should there be a construction plan for when this project, if this project, or when this project does go? Or did I just miss it?
No, I do not believe you missed it, and I do believe that would be a advantageous thing for the city to have. Right. But I also think that that would be through the police department. Historically, okay. In other more conventional subdivisions and projects alike, it's been the traffic division of the police department that has worked through that.
All right. And first of all, thank you for all your work on peer review. I know it hasn't been easy for you, and most importantly, your quick responses to our requests have been great. But in reading, I just want to read from The response to the applicant's application for the residents at Endicott. And this is the letter from Mass Housing to the applicant. And one of the requirements is the development of the site will require compliance with all state, federal, and environmental laws, regulations, standards applicable to existing conditions, and to the proposed use related to the building, construction, stormwater management, wastewater collection and treatment, and hazardous waste and safety. The applicant, and I should say safety in capital letters, the applicant should expect the municipality will require evidence of such compliance prior to the issuance of the building permit. So of all these requests, of all these conditions that you requested, are they in addition to state law, or are they going to be required by state law even if we didn't condition the permit, or I should say the variance?
Sure, that's a great question. Quickly reassessing these, some of them would be required by state law, but some are in addition to that from our department.
Some are in addition?
Yep, some are, yeah,
All right,
are
so,
certainly in addition.
so there is negotiation going on, and I guess what I was getting at was, all right, well, you know, it sounds good, you got all these conditions, but they're going to have to do it anyway. You know, the law is going to make them do it. So I'm glad to hear that there are some
Yeah,
things that...
yeah, the majority of these are conditioned beyond
Okay.
what DEP or other entities require.
All right.
These are conditions that have been specifically added by our department.
If a reduction to the size of this project should occur, okay, would that lessen the burden? I mean, would that lessen the price to the contractor, to the applicant? Or say, you know, they reduced the 6 units. So does that mean maybe some of the systems that they have to put in can be smaller, thus reducing the price?
Off the top of my head, the only one that I know that would probably be reduced would be the inflow infiltration reduction fee that we're charging the applicant, because that is based upon sewage flow based upon the bedroom count.
Okay.
I'm not confident that anything else on this would be modified unless the building itself, not the vertical height of the building, but the footprint of the project itself, like the impervious cover or something
Right,
along those
would
lines,
change,
were
okay.
reduced.
All right.
But I believe it would only be the sewer that would be, sewer numbers would be modified.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I do have a question to Jason, Mr. Panos, if I could. I was a little bit dismayed to say you wouldn't continue, and I'll tell you why. Because I believe at the meeting that you agreed to, there was some, I think Mr. Zelotis asked for you to go to another month, and there was some reason other than we're going to be done with peer review that you decided, well, let's keep it the 31st of December, and we'll see what happens from there.
No.
Oh, yeah.
If you
Okay.
can,
So,
well, I'm just going to correct the record if I may.
okay, go ahead.
At the time, in October, a request was made by members of Lotus to extend through December 31st. That was not by our request, it was
Right, I understand.
by the board's request.
Right.
We accommodated that without really a lot of discussion because we knew there were peer review issues remaining, and by giving an extra 2 months, a full 60 days, it would allow more than enough time. In the intervening time, we were 1 month behind, not because of anything the applicant did, but you were 1 member down in November. So we all decided it would be best to continue the meeting to tonight to allow that member the opportunity. Well, that member has since resigned, so that mooted that decision. However, that was the decision and the thought process at the time.
Right.
We're a month behind, not by anything the applicant did, because throughout that 2-month process, and Mr. Politz and everybody who's been involved in the process can attest, we have been using that time effectively and efficiently to address and conclude peer review, which resulted in the memo you got tonight or this afternoon. So 2 months at the time of the request was a lot. We used it effectively, and, you know, there's no reason for us.
So I guess, if I could, the project that's
Yeah.
been going on over a year, I guess another month is too much to ask. Is that what you're saying?
It hasn't been going on a year. You opened your hearing in May.
Almost. All right, so if I can just read from that letter, okay? Mass Housing letter, the response, okay? The applicant should be prepared to discuss concerns raised by the municipality regarding the proposed size, scale, architectural style, pedestrian access, and proposed multifamily building. Size. Now, you reduced a number of units, but it's still 6 floors with no change in the dimensions other than the height. No change in height, nothing else. There's no change in height to this building. So what have you done to consider size?
We reduced the massing effect by pulling back. Keep in mind, most of, if not all of the, well, certainly all of the abutting houses are oriented practically on Endicott Street. So by cutting in half, basically, that top floor and pushing it to the back away from those residents, we entirely changed the massing effect. So that's how we addressed the size. In doing the unit reduction also, we came in further compliance, in exact compliance with Mr. Emery's request, Mr. Emery from World Tech, hired by the city, that we provide 1 parking space per bedroom.
Okay.
That allowed us size, scale, massing. That allowed us the opportunity to take a step back, reevaluate the peer review, take it seriously, and address it. And that's exactly what we did. So yes, we did talk about size. We talked about scale. Your peer review looked at every aspect of this project, from a civil, environmental, landscaping, lighting. They looked at the whole scope of things. Water hookup, sewer hookup, and throughout a process that began in May of this year and has finally concluded 7 months later, we are at a point right now where, again, I've always said this, as I've appeared before you on different 40Bs, we talk about size and density as a condition, which we've already scaled back, when there isn't a condition that could address a peer review concern.
Well, that's the applicant's position. What if
That's
not
a
the board's
legally
position?
tenable position.
I don't know.
Well, I'm telling you in 20 years of experience, I'm not dictating to you, but I'm suggesting to you.
And I'm not here to go back and forth with you. I'm just saying that the only thing that we really need to address here now is the height of that project.
In what respect, in what regard, and for what reason?
That it's too dense.
How do
Reducing the
you
height
come
would
to that
reduce the
conclusion, though?
density.
But how do you come to that
At the
conclusion?
request, at negotiating for the rights of the neighborhood. Now, don't make this sound like, I don't want to sound like I'm the only one up here fighting, because I think, the board, I'm only one vote on this board, right? But you go to peer review, and you think that's the do-all, say-all of 40B. Well, you've got to address the residents' concerns also. When it comes to the safety, when it comes to, you talked about sidewalk, if you reduce the density, you reduce the parking, you reduce the street traffic, you reduce the size. Now,
But our peer review,
now listen,
hold on a second.
let me finish.
I want to answer your question or your comment. Your own peer reviewers have not suggested a parking or a traffic issue. I can't make it up. Barry, I can't make it up, and you're asking me to make it up. You're asking me to pull abstract thoughts from what your own consultants, they're not my consultants. We're paying for them, but they're not mine. I don't control what they say.
I understand.
Tony Capuchetti doesn't control, and Scott Thornton doesn't control what they say. They're your peer reviewers. So tell me what justifies a density reduction. Tell me what tells you the building is too big, because your peer review, and quite frankly, that's all I have to go on. And I have to trust that your hired peer reviewers, they're your peer reviewers, not mine. I didn't pick them.
That's right.
Okay? Will Pollitt has a relationship with these folks. They work well.
They work too, and they do a great job.
So give me a reason. Give me something I can hang my hat on. The only thing I can rely on is that back and forth that's come about over a period of 7 months. I can't make it up. I can't make it up.
Here's the problem, Jason, all right? As a board, our hands are tied. We cannot open your pro forma. We cannot use your pro forma to find out what makes this financially infeasible or what doesn't. I don't know enough about the money, but I know there are restrictions on the amount of money you can make on this project, okay? But none of that is ever mentioned, okay? What makes you think that against the neighbor's wishes, you can make X amount of dollars, all right? Nothing restricts you from making X amount of dollars. You just got to prove that you're not making this much.
That's absolutely wrong.
Well, all right, so maybe I am. I said I don't know, but
let me explain the process to you.
No, all I'm going to say is,
okay.
I don't want to go back and forth like this. Just let me talk, then I'll let you talk, okay? All right? Is that the only concerns that I have with this project is the density. Not even the density. I don't care how many units you put in. It's the height. It's 6 floors on Endicott Street. All right? Now, I just think it's too big, okay? I have a problem with it. So now what am I going to look at? I'm going to look at it and say, all right, this is a 40B. I understand all that. I think we've made a lot of headway with peer review, okay? But if I still think the project is too big, what do I got to hang my hat on? Okay?
That's a great question.
It's the finances. So now, we can condition this to X amount of units. And then you, not me, have to prove that I've made this project financially infeasible for you to do. You have to prove that, not me. All right? So what's to prevent me from saying, all right, you don't want to go another month, you don't want to close the public, you want to close the public hearing and all that stuff. Okay, if that's where you want to go, then maybe the only place I can ask this board to, and I don't think I got the support, to be honest with you, to say condition it to X amount of units. The amount of units that the board thinks will, one, provide affordable housing to the community and fit in with the character of the neighborhood to the best of our ability. That's my obligation, to make it fit into the character of the neighborhood to the best of my ability. And I need to use every resource I have to make that happen. I have to follow the law. You know that. We all have to follow the law. We take an oath. And I understand that 40B is a law. But just like the developer uses everything that 40B provides for them, I want to use everything that 40B provides for me to try to make this the best. I don't want to sit here and just have you say, well, your peer review said this, so that's the way it's going to go. The peer review can only bring it up to the standards. They may, Mass Housing even says, it meets the requirements to be a 40B, but it's not your final approval. You know that. It's not your final approval. You know that. In order for you to get final approval, we got to work together on this. That's all I'm saying. You use every tool you've got. Let me use every tool I got. to try to come into a nice project.
And I believe that over the past 7 months, look, I have nothing else but peer review. If you want to take your peer review and throw it out the window, which is what you're suggesting, and by Mr. Pollitt's own admission, most of the conditions that we've collaborated, you talk about collaboration. This has been a result of collaboration, okay? We've worked together to come up with that list of conditions, a lot of which is going to cost the project developer a lot of money, unanticipated money, that we did not start with. Not only are we dealing with a 6-unit density reduction, which costs money, we're talking about an I&I fee that's going to be over $100,000. We're talking about installing pedestrian amenities that's going to cost money. We're going to do that to alleviate the city's burden so that they don't have to, the city has different constraints, financial constraints, when they hire contractors and do projects that we don't have. So we'll undertake those projects. That has resulted from a collaborative effort. When you talk about, however, the statutory cap and income that a developer can make on a project being some nebulous blue smoke and mirrors, hocus pocus magic, it's not. It is the result of serious scrutiny. We have to hire, at our expense, again, a cost certification team that maintains for 30 years. 30 years we have to pay these folks to certify the costs of the project and make sure, especially on an apartment, where they're not one-offs, where we're selling the units, like King Street, that's a for-sale project. This is a 30-year obligation for us to hire someone to cost certify on an annual basis to prove out that 20-year, that 20% profit limitation. So it doesn't go unscrutinized, and it's a fairly transparent process. Going back to your suggestion that, yeah, we've got peer review, it's out there, but it's still too dense, and I'm going to suggest that this board make it a smaller project. And then I'm going to force the developer to make an argument before the Housing Appeals Committee, which is really where you're going to force us, okay? The mandate of the Housing Appeals Committee is to produce affordable housing. There was a case I cited in my correspondence to this board of October 6th, and it was a case in a smaller town about basically before the Housing Appeals Committee that was brought by the developer, because all cases to the Housing Appeals Committee are brought by developers, because they've either been denied. As a matter of fact, I think you guys are in front of the Housing Appeals Committee on Oak Street. So you'll understand this process a little better, probably better than I do. I don't go before them often. But in that case, not only did the Housing Appeals Committee strike down every single condition that the town of Wayland imposed on the ZBA, among those conditions that they struck down were conditions that the developer agreed to through that collaborative process. The Housing Appeals Committee said, nope, those conditions too go out the window. That's what you're dealing with. So if you want to throw peer review caution to the wind and say, it looks too dense, it feels too dense, you ask to hang your hat on something, give me something to hang my hat on. Tell me why it's too dense. Because we've been through an exhaustive peer review process that tells me it's not. We've checked off the boxes, more than checked off in a pro forma manner. We have evaluated and scrutinized this project as we have and you trust it or you don't. But I'm telling you that when it goes to Housing Appeals Committee land, That's what they got to hang their hat on. Your peer review, your science, your engineers, those comments, the negotiations between the developer and the board through that peer review process. And if there's nothing there for them to hang their hat on, I'm not threatening, I'm just suggesting what the past decisions recent decisions from the Housing Appeals Committee have resulted in. They're not going to look too kindly on a denial without a basis. That's all I'm suggesting. That's not a threat. I don't want to go there. I think we're in a good place right now. But
And I didn't intend mine to be a threat. All I'm trying to do, Jason, is all they asked for was a month to get a whole full view of the project, okay? And we can't give them that. You won't give them that. I mean, that's not negotiation in good faith. You know, I don't want to take this thing to go to housing court. I want an unanimous board. That's what I want. You learn your lessons after a while, you know. That's all I'm asking. Why can't we give them a month to get this thing done?
because we've given them 2 months, and the whole premise behind it was to allow the peer review process to conclude itself, which it has.
Okay.
And, you know, I have to tell you, Barry, we've been talking about this. Everybody makes a big deal of Zoom. The Zoom meeting, we had one Zoom meeting on this hearing. One Zoom meeting. You opened your hearing with Zoom. We did a full-on presentation. Now, I wasn't a fan of Zoom. I felt very uncomfortable with it until I didn't. I mean, then I actually felt a little more comfortable with it because anybody who wants to can dial in with their phone, can click if you're somewhat computer savvy, or if you have a computer, you don't even have to log in, you just click on the link, it takes you to the Zoom meeting, you can participate, you can raise your hand, you could do all sorts of things that you really can't do in this forum when people don't want to come to a live hearing. Okay, so we had that one meeting in Zoom, the rest were all public. We spent the summer continuing hearings to allow the peer review process to unfold. I mean, you've known me long enough, you know my MO. I will not present before the board for the hell of showing my mug before you, okay? When I present something, I want to tell you something. I want to be able to convey something. I want to be able to present something substantive to sink your teeth into. And if we're not ready, which we weren't, you know, we had a lot of work to do. Will Paulitz gave us a rather extensive memo that took us a long time to get through. When we were finally ready, which is another reason why we gave the 2 months, we thought, you know what, we took a long time through the summer. We're going to give the board a couple of extra months as well. We took a couple of months in the summer, we gave it back in the extension. And we're here tonight. In any event, I don't know what more to say. My hands are tied. And, I think as far as we're concerned, the public has been afforded an opportunity to look at this project, to look at the plans. They've always had access to Carla. They've always had access to anything they wanted. She's, in my opinion, we have our battles, but she's one of the most accommodating clerks I've seen, and I was chair of this board for 10 years. You can call her up, she gives you what you ask for. So the public has had the opportunity to see and vet this on their own and see this in the entirety. And today we did a fairly comprehensive tie-up presentation. We did the full site plan as it's been changed. We presented a full traffic study that was vetted through your peer review. We already knocked out water and I&I a long time ago. That I&I was reduced as a result of the unit reduction. So I'm not sure, with all due respect, what another hearing gets us. But to talk about the same things that we've been talking about for 7 months. And there comes a point where this process, in my opinion, has worked the way it should, which is you start off with these big issues and you narrow and you winnow them down. And that's how this process has worked. And to do another grand scale overview of what we're doing, well, we kind of did that tonight in the manner designed, not by me, but by this board. So, again, I'm not sure where we go with another open meeting. I'm not sure what more information could be gleaned from another open meeting. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments by the board? One more comment?
Sorry, you always think of things after you sit back down, but and adding more conversation to this night just brought up some more things. I did try to read some of the 40B stuff online, and no, I did not enjoy it. It's very, very, it's intense. But what I understood was, yes, the state does have very strict rules that you have to follow. There's all sorts of rules and regulations, and it gets very minute in detail. However, it doesn't give an attorney or a developer the right to change the zone. That is what falls to you. And that's what we're counting on you to say, this doesn't belong in this neighborhood. We don't care how much specialists you've had come and how much you've paid for this guy and that guy to do this test and that study. And as far as peer review, and I'm not 100% clear on it, but I don't believe peer review can address zoning. They can just address what's being presented for a building, but not changing the zone that they want to put it in. That's what falls to you. And I don't know if I'm correct in that. And I don't know if I can ask you questions, but that's what I was thinking, was that this is still, when he says, what else do you want from me? It's not what you should be giving him. It's that he's asking you to make this huge exception to accept that building in a neighborhood that it doesn't fit in. And we're asking you to say, we already have residents, tons and tons of them who have lived here, and they count too. So that was it.
Thank you.
Just in response to that, 40B is part of the Mass General laws, and unfortunately, it does give them relief from our zoning ordinance. That's the whole purpose of the comprehensive permit. Yes.
That's why they do 40B.
All right. So, we hear you, we understand what you're saying. We don't take this lightly. This has been a lot of 40Bs thrown at the zoning board. Everyone is different, but believe me when I tell you, we do not take this lightly at all, and we will do the best we can. But at this point, if there's no other comments by the board or the neighborhood, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Roll call vote. Yes. So the public hearing is now closed. We have 40 days to render a decision. We will meet again on January 24th, 2022 to vote. That being concluded, we need to do a few little business items. The mayor is not coming. Something came up. He is not coming this evening. Everybody look at your calendars. Here are the meeting dates for 2022. They are set. However, we have to change April 18th because that is Patriots' Day. So we have decided, thank you. We have decided to make the April date April 4th. April 18th is changed to April 4th. And in June 20th is changed to June 6th. So April 18th is changed to April 4th, and June 20th is changed to June 6th. That's the first item of business. May I have a motion to accept the new 2022 ZBA dates?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we now have, and you have those new dates right there for you. We now have a error correction from Attorney Panos on 27 Rear Farm Ave. Do we have that? Yes. Oh, right. Okay, it's this packet right here. Okay, Jason, hurry up, please.
Yes. So this is relative to the 27R Farm Avenue comprehensive permit the residence is at. We're going through a building permit application right now, and a couple of errors. It's actually one error that was carried through a couple of different places in the decision were made. I apologize, I didn't catch this. But basically, we added by accident 2 units to the 3-bedroom count, which the city doesn't want. And we had 2 less units on the 2-bedroom count. And so page 1 of the application, the decision is right. It should be 116 units, and that overall count isn't changing, with 57 1-bedroom, 47 2-bedroom, and 12 3-bedroom units. That's on page 1 of the unanimous decision from the board that I'm holding up right now. On page 7 and 8, however, what happened was 45 2-bedroom and 14 3-beds were referenced when that number should have been 57, 47, 12. So all I'm asking, because it was a simple scrivener's error, the right numbers were reflected in the application, the right numbers were reflected in the architectural materials, the right numbers were not reflected in the decision.
So who takes care of that?
You guys do. We can take care of this by a simple vote of the board acknowledging that it needs to be fixed. It's not a modification.
Do we have a motion to acknowledge that this has to be fixed?
Excuse me, yes, I'll move to correct the scrivener's error of 45 2-bedroom and 14 3-bedrooms to 47 2-bedrooms and 12 3-bedrooms.
Second.
Any opposed?
Yes, I'll have to get some correspondence to Carla, which I think you're going to transmit to the city clerk so that, so I'll send you something tomorrow with the revised decision pages? Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
We also have a clarification letter that was requested by Attorney Kelty. I will pass take one and pass it down. I had to sign this. Dear sir, the letter will serve to clarify the recent position expressed by the City of Peabody by and through its Zoning Board of Appeals, the Board, relative to the above-referenced permit application, the permit. In correspondence dated November 10th, 2021, the Board issued notice pursuant to 760 CMR 56.0531A and B that the above-referenced permit application is denied based on grounds that the statutory minima defined at 760 CMR 56033B have been satisfied. This letter will confirm that the Board is not denying the permit on these grounds at this time, but rather is invoking its right to claim safe harbor. Nothing herein shall serve to waive, release, or otherwise diminish the Board's rights to address and consider all applicable aspects of the permit in the future, including without limitation the Board's right to grant the permit with or without conditions or to deny it. This one is signed. This one is for you, my friend. And last but not least, we have a letter that we have to accept. It is a co-motion by the Peabody Planning Board, reason P691-21, Councilor Welton, co-motion with Councilor Turco. Move to receive under suspension of the rules the following late communications regarding 8 Centennial Drive, refer to the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and notify the Zoning Board of Appeals it is our intent to appeal the Building Commissioner's decision regarding the zoning. So we need to accept this, and that's it. You just have to obviously read it over, but right now we need to accept this into the record. So can I have a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? I believe that that is it. Let's see. Yes, yes, yes. Merry Christmas. I love you all. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
We are not yet. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, we are adjourned.